Hello, everyone. It's a little bit later than 2 o'clock today, but you know, the world of real estate and work and business and running a market center, it just gets busier and busier every time. Let me invite Benjamin on here. Boop. I'm supposed to have Steph on here too, but did I send out the calendar invite? Nope, I forgot. So one thing at a time. Hope everyone is having a fabulous day. At least it's not raining outside, so I will take that. Let's see where Ben is at. There we go. Approve and request. Da-da-da! We had a good weekend at Cheer, which was really exciting. I spent a lot of time. Hi, babe. I spent a lot of time in the car, so that was fun. Ben's got his Seahawks hat on today.
Oh, this one's amazing, by the way. Look at this old school, amazing. Well, don't look at the hair.
No one cares about your hair, but you have a lot of fuzzies on there.
Gray, yeah.
Lots of fuzzies. It matches your gray hair.
Yep. Thank you.
Are you still there?
I am. Can you
I
hear
think you
me?
paused. Yep, I can hear you.
Cool.
Okay. So we're going to talk about things that are going on in the market. Ignore my yawning today. I have some notes for myself. Ben has some talking about first-time home buyer stuff. I also wanted to talk about move up buyers because we spend a lot of time talking about first-time home buyers, and this is a really, really good move up buyer market. And so touching on that and what that looks like and how to create confidence. We had another lender at our team meeting here today talking about being locked in effect of people feeling like they're locked into their current rates with their home. Some opportunity of like thawing out that season. There's actually more people that have a 6% or higher mortgage rate now than there is people that are under 3. So there is that changing of times. So that plays a huge part. But what people don't realize is right now, because it is a little bit slower of a time, inventory's going down, which means that's only going to create more buyer demand when the right home does hit the market. We had an agent talk about today that they're showing properties up in Marysville and then one in Gig Harbor. Both had, it was purchase price 900,000. Both had lines out the door for showings at new construction and one not. There was an agent that has a house for 775 listed in West Seattle that had 75 couples come through the open house this weekend. And so, you know, these are the stories that people aren't talking about that are affecting and that are going to affect. Sorry, I got something in my eye. Going to affect the market and what that looks like. And if you don't jump on it now, those dreams may have to get an adjustment. And so there's a lot of people that are unhappy in their homes, but don't know what to do to make that an opportunity. So I wanted to touch on what are your options for selling and buying. We've talked about this a little bit. Yeah, so.
Cool.
So let's start there, okay? Why is it a good market to sell and buy? So on the sale side, yes, buyers are being a little bit more picky. There's a little bit longer days on market. That's a benefit to a seller because you're not having to rush and move and do all that kind of stuff. You can put your home on the market, look for that property, maybe even go buy contingent and get your home on the market, depending on the type of home you're looking to buy. There is a slower speed to this compared to in previous years. So we're not having to rush. Your home does need to look show ready and be priced appropriately
Yeah.
100%. That is where I think most people are missing the boat, is getting it in a really, really, really good spot so that when it hits the market, buyers are wanting to come see it, and it's the best condition and the best price. And if it's not the best condition, then you better have the best price.
Right.
It's like, now on the other end, when you go to buy, it's going to be the same thing. You're able to negotiate some of those things in the home where you couldn't before. So you're paying closing costs to sell. On the buy end, you may get your closing costs paid for and a little bit lower of a price. So there are some opportunities and concessions, and depending on if your home is a first time home buyer home, you may get multiple offers in this market. You may
Yeah.
not have to pay buyer closing costs. You may not, like, everything's negotiable, so nothing's like standardized, but there are different ways and different things that can be worked around in this market versus it just being a seller's market, and now you're going from one place to the next quickly, and then you can't find, you're having to write 3, 4, 5 homes. So this is a really, really good market to sell and buy in, whether you're downsizing, upsizing. It isn't just a first time home buyer market.
I like
So
that.
that was my 2 cents on that. So what options do they have? Let's say they don't, like, oh, I don't want to put my home on the market if I don't know where I'm going. That happens
Yeah.
a lot. So what kind of options from a lending standpoint can you do?
First thing I would say again, and I know I'm super repetitive on this, but turn on the light and know exactly what you qualify for with your home gone so that you can have a full pre-approval to know exactly what the rates are and where you're at and what the payments are so that when you do find that right home, it's an easy transition and very low stress. There are bridge loans that can bridge you into the next house and not have you go contingent so you don't end up homeless, which is the biggest fear of selling before you buy. Or what if something goes on with that week or the few days that between homes, nobody wants to move 3, 4, 5, 6 times. They want to just move right over into the next house. So how awesome would it be to buy and then sell your home? And we do have options for all of that. So that's what I would say right now for being the best market it is. This is a market with everything. It's not where prices are too high, where first time home buyers can't get in the market. It's not where you can't get a deal. There's a little bit of everything and low inventory, which is not fully great, but so you can get closing costs. You may not get closing costs. There's awesome loan options where maybe in the future when prices go up, there may not be as many options. It's the fantastic market.
Yeah, it's an a la carte market.
A la carte
A la
markets. I
carte
like
market, yes. You
I
can have
like
a
it.
little bit of dessert, a little appetizer, a little whatever, but you still have to be realistic. But
Yeah,
this is the market of opportunity.
I agree.
I love that. I'm gonna turn off my Wi-Fi and go on my phone because I keep cutting out. So let's try that. Okay.
Okay.
So moving on, tell me what's next on your list there.
Well, something I wanted to talk about was buyer confidence. I keep hearing this in just in general, buyer confidence. I know you said it. We've said it a few times on here. We're going to talk about it a little bit on the class coming up here in a week. And what is buyer confidence? When we say, a buyer who's confident in the market, it is that you are fully educated in so many different facets of the market, not just homes and selling and buying and price points, but monthly payments, what taxes are and how they're calculated in your payment. So basically the breakdown of a monthly payment and what goes into it, when you can remove mortgage insurance or HOA dues in there, what they look like, do you pay outside? It really comes down to education. It's understanding the full process of buying or the roadmap of buying a home, investing in your future. And that gives you the confidence to maneuver in any market, not just a certain market, and playing kind of behind the eight ball, if you were, for better words. Uh, so just understanding the different down payments you can use, the down payment assistance programs, understanding the credit score ranges. And, if your credit is in the mid 600s and 700s will get you the home or the rate that you desire to get that payment down, that is buyer confidence because you know what you're going into. So that's the basics there.
I love that. And I think to share a little bit, I was going to share this earlier, but I was talking to a mutual client that we have, and he was saying it was so nice to have an advocate for you and someone that he could just talk to about his goals and dreams and be able to look at different scenarios and how this makes sense or that makes sense. And that's the whole goal of one, why we do these lives, but also what we're in this business for, right? We're here to work through those with the numbers and what makes sense. We're prescribing and diagnosing like a doctor, but to your real estate stuff and what your future is. And does that make sense to go this direction to get to that direction? And what happens if this happens, and you don't get that house? But, there's so many different ways to look at things, and there's costs and liabilities, but also risks and rewards and all of it. And so being able to have a team that Ben and I can work together on that, and we have those deep conversations about these clients and go back and forth, and then they can feel confident as well, knowing that they're going down the right path for them because they've gotten the education, they've masterminded around it. You talk to this particular client for like 2 hours about what they can and can't do, and it's huge. And it's so nice to hear that that we are doing what we're preaching, but that we are that vehicle of hope for them to take their dreams off the shelf, put the effort into it, and figure out their best solution, because every client is different, every situation is
Yeah.
different. Are there standards and guidelines in our business? Absolutely. But on my end, everything's negotiable, and so we've got to figure out where that line is and how we can fit the puzzle pieces to make that payment make sense. By what do we need to sell for? What could we strategize in different ways to make things happen? Does it make sense to sell off market? Does it make sense to bring it to market? There's just so much that can happen, but we need to have those conversations with
Mhm.
people in order to help even figure out if that's possible 5 years, 1 month, 17 years down the road, whatever that may be. Let's start putting those connections together. You want to buy investment properties out of state? Let's look at what that looks like. You want to invest in commercial? Let's connect you with that. You want to build an ADU on your property? Does that make sense? Do you want to sell and buy this, but you want the next property to be a rental? What would that look like? Are you buying smart? Like, when there's emotion involved and multiple people involved, it's good to share those goals so Ben and I can keep you back on track so that things don't go haywire and now you're buying something or it doesn't make sense. So,
And it's always best practice to not make future financial decisions on a guess or something you heard on TikTok. Because the reality is once you turn the light on, your answer is there on exactly what
yep.
you should do once you have the roadmap. But if you don't have a roadmap and you're going off of what your parents said was a good idea or what a friend Jiffy Lube said or whatever that looks
Or what
like,
your
then
neighbor sold for, or, like there's a lot of what Zillow says.
yep.
Yeah. Like,
Then you're guessing. And we don't want to pray and close and say, I hope this works out. We want to make sure that we give you the education that's needed so you can make the right informed decisions.
yep, and create that confidence going back into that. We're
Yep.
going to all feel confident knowing where our top of our threshold is and where the bottom of the threshold is, and what would make it a 10 plus experience for you so that you feel amazing and super excited throughout this process. Anything else
Awesome.
you want to share, or is that good?
I have some other cool things that we could go over, but I'd love to hear. Go ahead and take it away.
No, I was gonna let you go.
Well, I really wanted to talk about inventory going into this next year. I know a lot of people feel that maybe I've heard rumors that they feel that prices are going to come down. I feel that in order for that to happen, you would have to, in a decreasing rate market, which we are going into. I mean, not to go political, but they just came out and said that they're buying $200 million of back securities. So that should force rates down. They're wanting these rates to come down. So if they continue to drop, which I do believe they will, in order for the home prices to drop with it, there has to be something else that goes along. Now, I don't want to foreshadow anything at all that shows that. I don't think that's going to happen. I think right now, where you can possibly get closing costs, and because the inventory is a little lighter, especially going out of holidays, which is typical, um, there's a better opportunity. Like you said earlier, this is the year of opportunity, to where right now you can get closing costs and you can possibly get a home at a little bit of a discount price or lower than what maybe list price was. We're going into where rates become lower. You may have more buyers. I think it was for every 1%, there was 5 million buyers coming back in the market, is a statistic I heard. And if that is the case, that means that this thing is going to teeter totter the other direction, where if you right now have one buyer to every two homes, or, possible buyer to that, and it's been sitting on the market for a while, you may have 4 or 5 buyers to every one homes, and they're not going to pay closing, and you're going to have to waive things, and you're going to have to possibly, you know, bring more funds in to buy that home. So that swing could be pretty huge, upwards of 20, 30, $40,000. So this is a phenomenal opportunity, and honestly, one of the best markets to purchase it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see home prices going down. We were just looking at what inventory is in all of King County, and it's at 1.3.
That's
That is
that's
insane.
crazy.
It was at like 4 months, like a couple months ago, and it's at 1.3. So if you're looking at statistics now, that's a lot of people taking their homes off the market that
Yeah.
couldn't sell, all of that. But that to be able to have that much of a difference in a month or two just goes to show that we're not anywhere near that. We don't have a ton of foreclosures of people not making their payments enough to drop the market in value. These institutional buyer, people that bought all these homes aren't going to flood the market with all their inventory because that would just jeopardize their prices of their own properties, right? So it's like there is nothing that's going to show that prices are going to go down. If
Mhm.
anything, it stabilized. Remember, it like froze. It's just, what was the word I used last week? Redirected, whatever. Anyways, we had such high increases for the last couple of years that it needed to take a slow down and
Mhm.
do some adjustments and renormalize the market, because otherwise affordability is just going to go crazy, which is
Yeah,
already at
crazy.
an all-time high. But the government's trying to do, without getting too political, whatever they can to stabilize and make affordability better, because when the real estate market is affordable, things are buzzing.
Mhm.
Companies are making more money, everything. So they've thrown out, 50-year mortgages. They've thrown out, what's the one? They talked about buying bonds. What's the one where they said that you could take your mortgage with you, like your rate with you?
Portable mortgages.
Portable mortgages. They talked
Yeah.
about that, right? They talked about reducing mortgage insurance. They talked about streamline mortgages for VA and conventional and FHA on different things. Like they're just throwing out so many different things. Nothing is beneficial yet, or written in stone, or constitutionalized, or whatever they call that. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But they are trying to figure out what is going to be that thing that gets affordability for the first time home buyers, for that American dream, so that they can they can make that possible, because that is the biggest issue. But that is not going to affect prices going down. If anything, of what they're doing is only going to increase. And in Washington State, inventory is so low, so low.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we haven't seen 10, 11 months inventory supply, which that would drastically decrease prices, since 08, 09, 2010. I mean, that there's not going to be another crash. That's just not a reality of what we're in. People are still being able to pay their mortgages at a high level. You know, there aren't bad loans out there that are being written, which is the biggest issue previously. So I would really, I think this is where we're going to end it, because I'm going to say this, is that question your own thoughts of where you're getting things. If your mindset is that I will buy a house when prices go down, really make sure that that's something that is in your best interest, and question where that thought is coming from, and speak to experts to know if that's the reality or not, because you're going to be around like-minded friends. You and your friends are going to have the same views on things. Typically, you don't have anyone that's really questioning your goals, and if that makes sense. And if home ownership is the goal, then let's make sure that your mindset is in the correct place that can help you get to where you need to be. And we can all know that our mindsets over the last couple years haven't been the best, speaking personally about anything or any topic. So I would just say, you know, we can't control our first thought, but we can our second, and enlist in people that are going to challenge you, that
Love
don't
it.
have the same beliefs or views, or that aren't going to talk you out of your dreams, because people have a hard time seeing other people succeed. And I don't want you to be one of those statistics. I want you to be able to accomplish your goals and have someone that's going to be in your corner figuring out how to do that with you. And Ben and I are the people to help you with that.
Agreed.
Okay, don't forget about our class, January 21st, 6 to 7 on Zoom. And we hope to see you guys there. Link will be in the comments.
Have a good
Bye.